Welcome to another edition of Path of the Just Q&A videos. I'm Jamal Sankey on mission here in the beautiful state of Florida. And since I've been here, there's been a whole lot of hype surrounding the resignation of the Pope and all of the events that are surrounding that. And so we've gotten a ton of emails asking questions about Revelation 17, about the seven heads that are upon this beast. And the questions have been such like, is the seven heads seven popes, with the eighth head being the real Antichrist of prophecy who was to bring the end of the world? What do we believe on the seven heads of Revelation 17? Questions along those lines. And we've gotten so many of them that I won't read the actual questions from the actual questioners because we've gotten so many. But let me go ahead and answer that question. What we believe is a ministry, and also in reality, what you really want to know is, what does the Bible say? So we're going to go ahead and turn to Revelation 17. And in Revelation 17, we're going to start in verse 1. And as we're turning to Revelation 17, one thing that we're going to do is we're going to assume that our viewers, you understand that the great whore spoken of in Revelation 17, also known as the woman that rides the beast, as well as the beast itself, we're going to understand and assume that you know that this is referring to the Roman papacy, aka the Roman Catholic Church. So in Revelation 17, this is what the Bible has to say. It says in verse 1, "And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication." So the first thing that you're going to notice here is the angel wants John to understand the judgment of this great whore, this Roman papal power. Now, the papal power has been judged before, only this was a partial judgment. Revelation 17 is going to deal with the final judgment of this great papal beast. Well, we understand, according to Revelation 13 and verse 3, that the first judgment, the partial judgment that came upon the papal power, was when it received its deadly wound by the sword in 1798. And we know that that is a partial judgment because the Bible tells us in that same verse in Revelation 13:3 that the deadly wound would be healed and that all the world would one day wonder after the beast. So in light of Revelation 17, the angel is trying to get John to remember this great judgment period. And if we understand that Revelation 17 is given in the lens or viewpoint of the judgment that took place upon the harlot in 1798, it'll give us a better understanding of the entire chapter. So again, the first thing the angel wants you to know is the judgment of the whore. And he's going to show the final judgment through the understanding of its first or partial judgment. And so this is what takes place in the third verse. The Bible says, "So he, the angel, carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication." And of course, the next verse shows that this papal woman, this harlot of Revelation, she has a tattoo on her forehead, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. But the very first place that the angel carries John in prophetic vision is to the wilderness. Now, the wilderness is very important for a prophetic student because it connects with it a time period. So for that understanding, we're going to the 12th chapter of Revelation. And in Revelation chapter 12, we're going to find out what time period is connected with the wilderness of Bible prophecy. So in Revelation chapter 12, let's just read verse 6 and verse 14. The Bible says, "And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days, or 1,260 days." And of course, we're also going to understand or assume that our viewers know that a day represents a year in Bible prophecy. So this woman flees into the wilderness for 1,260 years. The Bible says in verse 14, And to the woman were given two wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times, and a half a time, from the face of the serpent. Now, this time, time and a half a time, is a 3.5 year period, and 360 days in a Bible year. A time is 1 year, times is 2 years, and a half a time, of course, is half a year. So we're looking at 360, 720, and 180. And when you add that all together, of course, that makes 1,260. So connected with the wilderness is the 1,260-year time prophecy, which is exactly where the angel wants John to be, because it's through the lens of the partial judgment on the papal beast in 1798, the very end of this time period, where the angel wants John to get an understanding of this great and final judgment upon the whore. So he starts off by saying, John, I'm going to tell you the judgment of the woman, taking you back to 1798. John, I'm carrying you into the wilderness, taking you into the 1260, where in 1798 the papacy receives its deadly wound. And so we're going to operate upon the principle that upon the testimony of two, a thing is established, because there's other places in Revelation 17 that give us the very clear picture that where John is being carried in the vision is indeed the year 1798. But for time, we're operating upon the testimony of two. So it's an established principle that 1798 is where the angel wants John to understand and see this great judgment of the whore. But let's go back to the 17th chapter of Revelation and see what else the Bible has to say. Let's skip down now into verse 8. The Bible says, the beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. Now you'll notice the wording of the angel. Notice the past, the present, and the future tenses that the angel is using in his description. He's saying, John, this beast was before 1798, is not in 1798, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit in the future from 1798. So if we use 1798 as the lens or focal point, the marker, the prophetic marker of this vision, we have an understanding of these puzzles, these secrets, and God gives us these great clues to be able to unlock the secret of Revelation 17. So again, John, the beast that was, the beast that is not, and the beast that shall be. Before 1798, it was in power. In 1798, it's no longer in power. And future from 1798, it will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And just in case John, and therefore you and I, forget who we're talking about, notice what the angel says in the rest of the verse. It says, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And although there's a lot of prophetic symbolism here that we don't have time to deal with, it's very clear here who this beast is. The beast was and is not and yet is. It's the beast that those whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life will wonder after. Well, in order to understand that, we just go back to the 13th chapter of Revelation. So in Revelation chapter 13, notice what it says.